Good morning. It's good to be in the Sunshine State this morning, yeah, because wherever Tim Gillespie is, it's a state of perpetual sunshine. I learned that Orlando's out of hotel rooms last night. Tim and I shared a room. More than that, we shared a king-size bed. True. And this morning, as we were, getting ready to show up here, he looked at me and said, "You're wearing a suit." And I said, "You're rolling up your blue jeans." And so whether you've come in blue jeans or a suit, you're getting the full spectrum here this morning. It's good to be with you. My first encounter with the police, 1983. I was 13 years old and my parents were not happy. It involved a small Sony boombox. And for those of you old enough, you remember that you built your playlist by putting a cassette tape in the boombox. Is there a witness? And yes, and you recorded the great music and you would put it on so you would be able to play it whenever you wanted to. My parents sat down with me and said, "We've got to talk. We don't like your involvement with the police." And this is what they had in mind. Anybody? Yeah, and so we started to have a debate, the 13-year-old and mom and dad, around lyrics and their meaning. Every breath you take, every move you make, every bond you break, I'll be watching you. And then only to learn that Sting actually had something to say about this in 1983. I think it's a nasty little song, really rather evil. It's about jealousy and surveillance and ownership. And so I was not winning any battles with my parents over these issues. And then my mom dropped the word. And my brothers and I heard this word growing up. "Alex, we just don't want you to become desensitized." Desensitized. We don't want you to become desensitized based on the lyrics that you're listening to, what they say about money and relationships and power and revenge. By the way, we had the same conversation when we'd shuttle off to Blockbuster Video and pick up video. Don't become desensitized. And the friends we made and our exposure to the broader world, my mom and dad were concerned that I would become somehow desensitized. And they didn't mean the five senses, what we see and hear and smell and taste and feel, but rather what we call the sixth sense. But I would call it the first sense, because it's the most important of all the senses, that is spiritual sensitivity. Moral feeling, the ability to ethically navigate the world. They wanted to make sure that their kids, their boys, were spiritually sensitive. Jessica just read the words of Paul just a moment ago. Paul's concern that you're losing all sensitivity. And what she didn't read was some of the heavy-hitting cannon fire that Paul uses in those verses. And you can read them if you want. Words like malice. Malice. You're angry, you're full of rage and bitterness, and you hate your enemies. You become completely desensitized. You don't know that you're mad all the time. And then uses the word greed. You think that you can hold your money like an alcoholic who claims they can hold their liquor. Well, I can hold my... You have no idea. You are consumed. In fact, his phrase is, you are full of greed. Money has taken you over and you have no idea. And then the apostle uses the word unwholesome. Unwholesome. What is unwholesome? Meaning there's no well-being in what you have to say. There's no therapeutic value in your language anymore. And Paul just brings out the heavy guns and says to that group, you have become desensitized to the point, the phrase is, you have grieved the Holy Spirit. God is weeping because you've lost all sensitivity. And so all these years, all these decades later, I have to ask myself, have I become desensitized? Have you become desensitized? I mean, it's pretty easy to look out at the condition of society, at least in the Western world, at least in the United States, and look at followers of Jesus and say, we've become a people addicted to malice. We're angry, we're bitter, we hate our enemies, we always seem to be at war and fighting. We seem to be pretty comfortable with money, consumerism, greed. And what about our language? Both in the airwaves and in the airwaves, what have we become? Have we become desensitized? Would we even know it? But my concern today is not with anybody outside this beautiful warehouse. It's not even with all of you. I've got one question for one person. It's for this guy right here. Has Alex become desensitized? And I invite you to ask that question of yourself. Have you become desensitized? Is it possible that our following of Jesus has become damaged, severely so, because we've lost all sensitivity about what it means to deeply follow him, absent the corrupting impacts of the world around us? Question to think about this morning, desensitized. But I want to pivot now. Just let that question sit with you. I'd like to pivot to a different word, and that's how might we be resensitized? And I'm going to give you 3 pieces of little advice, and I'll sit down. Read Lincoln, buy dog food, and move your office, and then we'll be done. All right. Read Lincoln. It is President's Day weekend, after all, in the United States. Here is an image I think I have for you of Abraham Lincoln at his second inaugural. This is March 4, 1865. By the way, his second inaugural address is generally regarded by historians to be the single high watermark of all presidential speech making in American history. Lincoln's second inaugural. I'm going to remind you, March 4, 1865, just a few weeks away, April 9, Lee will surrender to Grant at Appomattox, the end of the Civil War. April 14, Good Friday, Lincoln will be shot, Washington, D.C., in Ford's Theater. But Lincoln stands up and he has something to say. Interesting here at his inaugural parade, do you know what you're looking at right here? Black soldiers, former slaves in the military, black men with guns, former slaves with weapons. Lincoln knew what he was doing. And in his second inaugural address, and if you have visited this sacred place in American lore, you go up to the Lincoln Memorial and you read the full text of his speech. First of all, in no uncertain terms, Lincoln is clear slavery is wrong. And if you've read the speech, he cites Exodus and the Psalms, James and Matthew and Luke. It's a little speech drenched in biblical language. Lincoln, in no uncertain terms, names what is evil with clarity. But then he does something else which makes the speech truly remarkable. He does not say, and I am right and all of you are wrong. I'm the solution and all of you are the problem. He does not say the North is in the right and the South is often the wrong. No, he says, God is in the right and all of us are responsible. All of us. We're all part of the problem. And then in these famous words, which many of you will know well, with malice towards none. With malice towards none. With charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and his orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations. We're all part of the problem, and all of us should heal and be part of the solution. Reading Lincoln. Somebody walks up to me and says, Alex, just the other day, Alex, you know what? The news media, 24/7, it's just awful. And I'm thinking, how do you know? I'm like, Because you're clearly watching the news 24/7. This is the problem. Alex, there's nothing but just horrible, disgusting stuff in social media. It's just populated with loads and loads of just the most revolting, profane things in social. And I'm thinking, how do you know? Because that's what you're reading. That's what you're being exposed to. Maybe we should stop. Maybe we should start reading Lincoln, or reading the poetry of Emily Dickinson, or listening to Bach and Beethoven, or reading the complete works of Eugene Peterson, or Barbara Brown Taylor, or what is it for you? Maybe in order to be resensitized, we have to say, stop, enough. And even in this political year, say, maybe 5 minutes a day just to kind of check in with it, maybe that's enough. And maybe we need to have the courage to walk up the steps of a memorial and soak in elevated language that lifts our spirits and sharpens our sensitivity. If not, what hope do we have? Read Lincoln. And whatever that means for you, immerse yourself, immerse myself in things that lift us to greater levels of sensitivity. Oh yeah, buy dog food. So Christmas, just a few weeks ago, our family travels to Atlanta, the capital of the South, the Peach City. And Atlanta has things that my little hometown of 60,000 people in the middle of nowhere, USA out west, they have things like stores, shopping, opportunities to enjoy the world, and my 13-year-old boy, he is buying in all the way. And we were out there this past December, and what he's going to buy and what he's going to buy next. And I mean, his eyes are big, and he is just consuming this whole experience, and he won't shut up. We got to go here, we got to go here, we got to shop there, we got to shop there. It's just nonstop chatter day after day, and I'm on a trip, just the two of us in a car, and we're headed out because he wants to go to Walmart, and he just is talking nonstop about all the things he needs and has to have, and we pull into this, so just the huge Walmart parking lot on the way in, and then we see it, and he looks over and he sees it, and there's a man without a home, man without a house, with a couple of bags and a little dog. And William says to me, Dad, we got to do something. I said, what do you want to do? He says, we need to get that dog some dog food. Went into Walmart. He completely forgot about all the other things he wanted to buy. We go over to the dog food section, get the appropriate bag, back out to the parking lot, wait for a couple police officers to, kind of clear out of the way. They're having a conversation with this gentleman. And I said, you go, Will. I rolled down the window of the car so I could hear what was going on. And he walked across. And my kid gives this guy a bag of dog food. They exchange Christmas greetings. Little William comes back in the passenger seat. His face is all aglow. We drive out of there. Nothing. Silence in the car. And it lasted for like 20 minutes. And then he started talking again about all the things he wanted to buy. But I sat there and I thought, the power of disruption when our hearts and minds, when our eyes are focused on someone who is in need, and it changes everything even for a moment. Friends, we got to buy more dog food. We got to spend more time caring for people who are in real need, and maybe that will break us of the greedy habits that Paul is talking about. Maybe that will free us from the addictions to consumerism that plague us and rob us of the sensitivity that we need in following Jesus. Read Lincoln. Buy dog food. Oh yeah, move your office. Move your office. So we'll get to the move your office in a minute, so I'll tee it up this way. I'm going to talk to you about my dad, okay? Here he is, there on the right, and he's getting the Bronze Star from Colonel Bruce La Follette, his commanding officer, Vietnam, 1970. And his wife, my mother, back in Washington, D.C., my mom pregnant with me. I've been punctual my whole life since the beginning. I was a little too punctual. To come at 7 months in 1970 was dangerous business, friends. Some of you know this. To come at 7 months in 1970 was very dangerous business. They were sure I wouldn't make it. In fact, my dad's commanding officer sends a letter back to the United States from Vietnam. You can see here the mistake, Tacoma Park, Massachusetts, right? But it's actually Maryland. But I have this on in my file. And then here's the letter. My dear Mrs. Bryan, we all were so sad to hear about the premature birth of your boy, the probability he will not survive. And then here's what I want you to listen to. Your husband has been a sterling, stabilizing influence to all of us who have had the pleasure of associating with him. When this year is over, maybe we can all get together. Our sympathies and our best to you both, Bruce La Follette. Dated 17 March 70. I was born on 16 March 70. By the way, when you survive this, good luck with the rest of your life. You were born for a purpose. God saved you for a reason. Don't screw up your life. Everything you do from this point on, don't become desensitized. Jesus needs you. It's great. It's a great life. My dad, 28 year olds in Vietnam, this stabilizing, powerful influence. Here's a picture with me. You don't look so good when you're born that quick, that early. There's my daddy. Army flew him back to see me. Pediatrician, my dad. Practiced pediatrics for half a century. I got some pictures from him, with HIPAA and other things. You got to, like, Dad, what can you share with me? This was one patient of his that went on to the National Football League. My dad said, use that one in your presentation because I'm responsible for this. There's my daddy. That's what little Will, the 13-year-old I talked about earlier. This is my dad and my son. You can see the pediatric spirit in that picture, can't you? Yeah. The genes, just the sweet spirit. So just a year and a half ago, this is his very last patient. His very last patient. These are the 4 younger colleagues after he had sold his practice and was hanging on. So for years, my mother begged him to retire. And he kept resisting. She said, Bill, you're going to make a mistake and you're going to end your career on the wrong note. She would say, Bill, you got to retire. And he just, you know why he kept hanging on? Because of these 4. These 4 kept saying, you got to stay. And we don't care that you're working, get this, 3 half days a week. So he's beyond productivity, and he was very productive in his prime, but he's far, those of you that are in business, he's far beyond productivity at this point. He's not at the cutting edge of Mayo Clinic medicine at this point. No, you got to stay in. We want you to come in. And why? Not because of productivity, not because of cutting edge science, but because of the soul of the man. We need the compassion, the spiritual sensitivity. Don't leave us because of everything you have to offer that truly is transcendent. You can't leave. And man, I thought about that when I hang it up at the end of my day. Well, people say, Alex, don't leave, not because I'm productive or that I'm smartest in the room, but because there's a spiritual sensitivity to quality that's so rich and so beautiful and so attractive, we can't do without it. And I ask all of you the same question too. When it's time for you to hang it up, are people going to say, don't leave, not because you're the smartest or the best or the most productive, but because you house Jesus in a way that they just can't let go of? I wonder. Moving your office? Oh yeah, moving your office. So my dad, when he owned his practice, he moved his whole office operation to have an adjacent parking lot with his church. Because he was so dedicated to his church and he loved Jesus so much, he did not want his office to be far away. He moved his office. And so my final question to you is it time to move your office? To move your C-suite, to move your classroom, to move your church, to move your life? Is it time to move it closer to Jesus? It's a real danger, friends, that we become desensitized. But may we be resensitized. Brothers and sisters, read Lincoln. Buy more dog food. Move your office.